Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to change the color of your lamp cord from this to this. This is the new cord I'll be using. You'll also need a cloth, vice grips, wire strippers and wire cutter, X-Acto knife, screwdriver, and if your new wires aren't tinned on the ends, meaning that if they don't have solder on the ends, you'll need a solder gun and solder. So the first thing you'll want to do is to remove this little cap here. You're going to want to grab your cloth, put it over the screw there, grab your vice grips. The cloth is just to protect it. You're going to want to hold down and just turn it left. Next, under there's a nut. I'm just using the vice grips and being careful not to damage the paint. Next, you want to remove this screw for the lampshade. Set that aside here. Next, we want to fish the wire through so that we can have enough slack to pull this out. So I'm just going to fish the wire up, and I'm just going to push it in. And as I'm pushing it in, I'm pulling it out. So the way this works is that it unscrews here. This white piece here is two separate pieces, and it's split right here along here. You might be lucky and you might be able to turn it, and this just unscrews. The first one I did wasn't so lucky. I had to wrap this in a piece of cloth, use vice grips, and twist it off. And just be careful, there's like these little tabs in here that catch in these little rings. So when you're unscrewing that, you might want to use a screwdriver and hold it down. So I'll just unscrew this, and we'll set this aside. So next we're going to take this little black piece out, feed the wire down in there as you're pulling from the other side as well to support it. There we go, that's what that looks like. So this little flat washer looking piece is insulation for the wires against here. Also stops heat and stuff from going up. So you want to keep that, don't lose it. And you see the wire is knotted a certain way. You'll want to re-knot the wire this exact same way. I think it's called an underwriter's knot. So if you're not familiar how to do that, I'll show you. You can also take a picture of it and try to replicate it. So the way that these wires are held in is that they're just pushed in. You can just firmly hold one and pull it out back and forth. Or you can also cut it off. So this is it with the wires removed. You can either pull them out or cut them off, because for each wire there's two possible holes that you can put them in. So here's 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. So if the wire accidentally breaks off in there, you have another hole that you can just put the new wire in. So this wire broke off and this wire came out fairly easy. So if the wire breaks off, it's not a big deal. Just cut the little piece that's sticking out off so that it's not poking out anything once you put it back together. So this is the black little piece removed. Next, we'll want to take out the wire. So you'll want to undo this nut. Or if you're not using the wire, you can just cut the wire, but I'm just going to save the wire just in case. We'll just set these two aside. So on the wire, you might notice these little clear plastic caps, and these are just to protect the wire against the edge of the metal in here. So we'll just pull these off and set these little clear plastic tube pieces aside for the new wire. So I'll pull this through. I'll set this one aside as well. There's one on either end. And then I'll just pull this wire through. So before we fish the new wire into the body of the lamp, you'll want to try and pay attention to which wire is hot and which wire is neutral, so that you can plug it into the correct socket here. So for example, when the bulb is like this, the neutral touches the side and the hot or positive touches the base of the bulb. So it sits like that. And you want to make sure that that corresponds to the correct wire on here. So again, the wide prong is neutral, and then the narrow prong is hot. And let's see, on this particular new lamp cord, the hot wire is marked with all the information about the wire. You can just follow it all the way up. Here you go. This one's the hot wire. You can mark it with a Sharpie or a pen. Okay, let's feed the new lamp cord into the lamp body. So you'll want to push it up here underneath. Let's see, just try and get an idea of how much you need in there. That's probably about good. Before you push it through this part, take your little plastic wire protector, put that back on. I'm going under this metal bar, and I'm going in here. I'm just going to push it all the way in until it comes out the other side. Put your other little wire protector on this side, make sure it's facing the correct direction. The narrow part goes first. Next, you'll want to take your X-Acto knife and carefully split the wire. You want about 1.5 inch split, maybe 2 inches, something like that. Next, we'll feed the wire back into the body of the socket. So you're just going to feed it through the side like this, and it's going to come up in here. And just pull it through where you have about 3 inches to play with, because the edge of these wires will need to be tinned. Put your insulation back on. So this is what we have for now. Next, we're going to tin the ends of the wires. We're going to tie our knot and then plug these back in. So I've moved into the bathroom just to avoid setting off the smoke alarm. So you want to have your solder hot, and you want to have your wires twisted just so that they're not strands. You want to twist them into one wire. You're just going to take your soldering gun and heat up the wire. This might take about 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how hot your solder is. Once the wire gets hot, you can put some solder on there. And that just coats the wire, all the little strands of wires as one. This is just so that it's easier to put into the socket, because it's a push system. You just push it in there and it's held in there. So with the ends of your wires tinned, this is what they look like. You're just going to take your wire cutters and cut just the very tip off, maybe 1 millimeter or so. This is just to give it a clean angle to be pushed into the wire terminal. There you go. So you have a nice sharp point to put it inside. So with the ends of the wires tinned, we're going to tie the underwriter's knot. And to do that, you just pull your wires like this. I have about 3 inches. You can do more if you want, but I like to keep things tidy. So you're going to have them like this. You take your left side and you go behind both wires. You curl it like that. So you take your left side and curl it like that, and it goes behind both wires. Then you take your right side and go behind that part that sticks out from the left wire. So the wire that we initially curled behind. So you take your right side, you go behind it, and we're going to go through this hole up here where my index finger is pointing. And we're just going to go through there. And you're just going to pull both ends. So that's what the knot looks like, tied. So if anything was to pull on or tug on the wire, it just tightens the knot rather than pulling them out of the socket. So now remember that we marked which wire was our hot and which was our neutral. The wire with the wording on there about the information, we marked that one with a pen, and the wire with nothing on there, that's the neutral. So this is what we have as our knot. We're now going to put it in here. Remember that this flat piece is the hot, and this piece that's sticking up is the neutral. So we're just going to put them in corresponding like that. So this is hot here, that's neutral on the left. On the right is hot, neutral here on the left. And we're just going to plug it into the little terminal that it goes into. It clips right in. Next we're going to do the neutral side. Next we can feed the wire, all the excess wire, back into the body of the lamp. There you go. Once that's seated like that, then we'll put the screw back on, or the cover rather, and that just screws on. Next you're going to want to take your little metal washer that came off, put it back on top of here, and while holding it, you're just going to feed the top back into this hole here. Put your nut back on. Take your vice grips and just carefully tighten it to snug. Just be careful not to scratch the surface. Next we'll put our cap back on. Next we'll pull some of the slack back through. Put the lampshade holder back on. And we'll throw a bulb in there just to test it. Okay, so it's plugged in and we have a bulb in. Let's just test if it works. And it works. So that's how you change the lamp cord on your lamp.